You're listening to 91 Reasons, a journey into the twisted landscape of pop culture. Keep your hands and arms inside the podcast at all times. And now, the voice, Jeff Tucker.
Hey everybody, it's Jeff. Welcome back to another episode of 91 Reasons, the infrequent podcast where you look down at your device and you go, hey, that guy did another episode? Where the hell has he been? Yeah, where have I been? That's the question, right? I was so good at doing an episode a week for years, and then life just sort of slammed into you. The pandemic has just wreaked havoc every facet of society. And that's an excuse, but there's a myriad of problems I've had putting shows together. The main issue is simply I don't have a space to record anymore. The way the house has been reconfigured and moved around, and I just don't have a private space to go record anymore. And I'm trying to fix that. I'm trying to come up with ways that I can, camp out and do a show somewhere. For a while, I was doing shows in my car, and that was interesting. But then that sort of ended. I can't really go somewhere and park. And I also learned that you can't do it if it's too hot. You can't record in the car if it's too hot. So here I am recording. It's good to be back with you. How have you been? How's the family? How are things? We're going to do a bunch of small stuff for this episode. I don't have a full hour I can talk about things, but I'm going to just put some stuff together and, we're just going to hang out for a bit. It's as long as it is, and that's what it is. All right, so I watched a bunch of crap lately, and none of them are worth a full show because they weren't that good, and they weren't as awful to deserve a full show. You have to be really good or really awful to warrant a full hour of 91 Reasons. Take that as you may. Well, I watched the Batman, the Robert Pattinson Batman, the long-delayed dark Batman movie. And, I've been a Batman fan since '89. Prior to that, I loved the Adam West show. I used to play Batman and Robin with my friends, the cartoons. The Adam West show was in syndication, so at 5 o'clock after the cartoons had ended, it went right into Batman, and I was like, yes! And if at the front of the show, during the credits, if the Batgirl cycle drove by, I was like, I'm not going anywhere for the next 30 to 40 minutes, because sometimes they would run two in a row. So it was a full hour of Batman and Batgirl. So when that movie in '89 came out, I was caught up in Batmania. Batman '89 came out the day I graduated high school. So that was the last time that all of my friends were together in the same spot before we took off on our own ways to start life. But right before that, we graduated, and then we went and saw Batman at midnight. And it's one of my favorite movie-going experiences of all time. Just really good memories of sitting there, the lights dim, and then Danny Elfman's score, da-na-na-na-na, and then Batman with Michael Keaton. And I went and saw Batman Returns. I didn't care for Batman Returns in the theater. I consider it now a classic. It's a fantastic film, but completely misunderstood in its day. Batman Forever is a glorious mess. I've watched it a lot. I was working at Knott's backstage in between shows. We used to watch movies, and Batman Forever was a staple of the backstage area. Batman and Robin, I did a whole episode on Batman and Robin. One of the worst films ever made. You can't even point to like a couple of things where you're like, well, that's what makes it, okay. There's not anything to like in Batman and Robin. It's a terrible, terrible movie. I enjoyed the Christopher Nolan trilogy, Batman Begins, Dark Knight Rises. I don't really care for the Bane character and the way the whole thing sort of wraps up at the end. There's a lot of inconsistencies in its plot. Dark Knight's a masterpiece. Heath Ledger hit it out of the park, going up against Jack Nicholson's Joker, and really, not only winning an Oscar, but a place in pop culture as just an amazing, amazing Joker character. Batman Begins is good. It's not great. It suffers from the bloat of having to tell the origin again. So I was refreshing to see The Batman with Robert Pattinson, and that he's just Batman. We don't need an origin story. We don't need to know what happened that night in Crime Alley. My God, if you don't know how Bruce Wayne is inspired to be Batman, you probably wouldn't see this movie anyways. Maybe there were some Twilight fans who went in to see this film who were not aware of the Batman mythos. Maybe, but even then they didn't do it. Now, what they did do is 3 freaking hours of tedious Batman story. Now, we'd seen the Riddler before. Riddler's the main villain of this film. We'd seen him in Batman Forever, played by Jim Carrey, who's basically channeling just crazy insanity as the Riddler. This one's a completely different Riddler. This is the TikTok Tumblr Riddler on social media who's getting likes and help from his fans. And you know, the setup to this movie is pretty good. It's basically, you know, what do I always say on this show? If you're going to steal, you might as well steal from the best. And so he steals from David Fincher's Seven, which is a masterpiece, a complete masterpiece of crime and urban decay and the origins of evil and the criminal being smarter than anybody trying to catch him. So if you're going to steal, you steal from that, I guess. So the Riddler is channeling the Seven killer, John Doe, and he is murdering people and leaving clues that there is something going on in Gotham City. And that something is, you know what? I have to tell you, folks, I'm not going to get all these facts right. I've only seen this movie once. I couldn't sit through it again. It's mind-numbingly too long, and there's no payoff to it. But the Riddler is aware that something happened in Gotham years ago where when the Waynes died, Bruce Wayne was mayor, I think, if I got it right, and he set up a big fund for orphans that was going to help all the orphans of the city. And when he died, the money got used by nefarious people for horrible things. And the horrible things is that the top cop in town has arrested the top criminal in town, the drug-dealing gangster, and all is going to be well in Gotham except everybody's corrupt. And everybody's in on it except Jim Gordon. So Batman has to follow the clues that the Riddler is laying out. And the clues are leading him to who set up the crime boss, who's the stool pigeon who squealed, and therefore is the rat, the flying rat. They do a lot of Batman references as a flying rat. And so we have these intricate puzzles and clues, and even Alfred is helping out with the clues. And they're leading one way and the other. It's the first time we've seen a true Batman detective story. And I thought that was a great take. I've always wondered why there weren't 3 or 4 Batman movies in production at any given time, the same way the comic books take care of Batman. There's an action one, there's a detective one, there's an Elseworlds title where we take on different variations of the Batman, and they all run concurrently. But the movies, it's like, no, one guy is Batman, and that's the way it is. You know, I've always said Batman is America's version of James Bond, where you change the actor, but, you know, he always has a car, he always has a cave, he always has a colorful nemesis, and we go to it again and again and again. And that's just the way it is. But the plot is so freaking intricate that you think they're building up to something astounding. Like, oh my God, hang on. Because, again, if you're talking about Seven, the end of Seven, Wrath is the detective. Somerset. John Doe manipulates everyone. He even tells him, he goes, you weren't going to catch me. You only caught me because I walked into the police station. So I've planned this whole thing from the start. I envy you, and the envy takes its form in he has decapitated Brad Pitt's wife's head and put it in a box. And he tells the detective, your wrath, you're going to kill me. And then he does. And you leave the theater feeling sick because John Doe won. And if you're going to steal from 7, you're never going to equal 7, and you're certainly never going to better 7. But you may as well get as freaking close as you can. And so Batman follows the clues all the way to the end to ultimately find out that Falcone, played by John Turturro, is the stool pigeon. And instead of beating the crap out of him, beating him to death, he's like, no, you're going to face justice. He takes him out the front door, and Falcone is assassinated by the Riddler, who's been living across the street and watching the whole time. So all of the riddles were to eventually get Batman to arrest Falcone and take him out the front door so that he could be shot. That's the whole plot. All the machinations, all the riddles, all the subterfuge, all of the red herrings, including one that almost hinted that Bruce Wayne and the Riddler character were brothers, which I was like, please don't do that. I mean, didn't we just do that in the Joker movie? Falcone is murdered, and the Riddler is taken into custody, and the movie still has nearly an hour to go. And I thought, oh, we're in trouble, because they've just shot their wad here. Falcone's dead. What is the plot of the movie then? What is the Riddler's actual scheme? What does he hope to accomplish? And so Batman goes to interview the Riddler in, a Silence of the Lambs ripoff. Again, if you're going to steal from the best. It was also, we saw this exact scene in No Time to Die with James Bond, even with the elaborate, jail cell. And the Riddler's wearing some collar that looks like he could just take it right off. Did I miss something? Is it magnetic or electrified? Or because why wouldn't he just take it off? Why would he sit there with a big hula hoop around his neck? And so the Riddler and Batman talk, and the Riddler is talking as if he knows who Batman is. He knows that he's Bruce Wayne. And it's played for real. Like the Riddler, hey, if he's this smart, if he's managed to manipulate Batman this far down the line, why wouldn't he know? It's not that easy. It's not that easy. It's not that hard to figure out. It's not that hard to figure out that Bruce Wayne is Batman if you can, do 10 minutes of research. And Batman just stares off into space. Somebody has got to put together a supercut of how many times Batman stares off into space in this movie. It happens a lot. It's what pads the runtime. But the Riddler isn't talking about that. He's talking about something else entirely. And he's basically telling Batman that Batman and the Riddler work together. We're a team. And Batman's like, no, we're not a team. He's like, no, you helped me accomplish my goal. And you're like, well, what is the goal? Wasn't it to kill Falcone? It's not to kill Falcone. It's something else. It's not revenge for the Riddler being an orphan and the money being abused and used for other purposes. No, it's so that the Riddler can detonate bombs all around the city, to break the levees, to flood downtown during the mayor's big speech. And oh, by the way, the Riddler has social media followers who have not only hit subscribe and that notification bell, but will pick up a gun for this man they've never met, pick up a gun and go shoot innocent people dressed as him. It's a huge, huge leap in logic that the Riddler, who's antisocial, can somehow charm all these people, and there must have been, 10 or 12 of them. He can charm all of them into picking up a gun and committing murder. Like, it was really a groaner. Someone told me, like, hey, it's a pretty good movie, but the last act just falls apart. And I was like, wow, that sounds crazy. And then I'm watching it and going, wow, the last act falls apart. The whole movie actually just falls apart at the end. I don't know how many people drowned in the Riddler's disaster, but it wasn't like everybody was going to survive. Huge waves of water are crashing into the convention center where he knows everyone will go to seek refuge. At the same time, people are in the catwalks just taking pot shots and killing people. Like, how many people died? I would guess this movie, out of all the Batman movies, has the highest body count. Because Batman is just, people are dying left and right. Even though Batman's like, I swore I would never kill. Well, there's a lot of people dying because of you. That being said, we had another case where the movie trailer gives away some of the key elements. We have Colin Farrell as the Penguin. He's not the Penguin in this movie. He's just Oswald Copperpot, or whatever the hell his name is. I was going to say Chester Copperpot, but that's from Goonies. Oswald. But he's never really the Penguin. They won't even let him smoke. The Penguin in movies now can't smoke. So take that as you will, PC culture. You can beat people senseless, drown them, shoot them, cover their faces in duct tape, wreck a car in a funeral, threaten children, but you can't smoke. I mean, we have to draw the line somewhere, don't we? It's so ridiculous. But the sequence in the trailer that's given away is the Penguin car chase, where Colin Farrell does some of the worst acting I've ever seen, where he goes, I got you! I got you! Like, somebody thought that not only was that a good take, but it was good enough to put in the trailer, I got you! I got you! Like, that's it? I mean, if you're gonna go, I got you! Like, you should at least go, like, at least, right? Just a little penguin-ism? But watch that sequence if you've not seen this movie, and wonder, when the Batmobile comes crashing out of that fiery wreck, how many people died? How many motorists died so that he could bring the Penguin to justice? I'm at a loss. I'm at a loss. And I'm not offended by any of it. I'm just wondering, like, what was the thought process behind having the character do that? We also have the Catwoman in this movie. I enjoyed the Catwoman quite a bit. She did make a mention of white privilege, which I thought was odd in this movie. And Bruce Wayne, you haven't done enough, Bruce Wayne. I'm like, okay, whatever. Guilt the rich again. We have another one of those movies. I mean, the guy does dress up in rubber and fight crime at night and put himself at risk. But I like the Catwoman character. She does some cool stuff in the film. This is supposed to be like the second year that he's been Batman, so there's a lot of moments where he doesn't quite know how to get out of things. The sequence where he gets knocked unconscious and they take him to the police station is funny because at no time did they try to remove his mask. I mean, wouldn't that be the first thing? Like, if a guy's knocked out in the street that you know is a masked vigilante, the first thing you would do is take his mask off. How do I know this? Because that's the tactic of every WWF wrestling match from the 80s. If the guy wears a mask, as soon as he's down, instead of pinning him to win the match, he's going to try to take his mask off. That's a given. At least in the 89 Batman, when they go to take his mask off, they get shocked. Zing! And I did find that odd because Batman has shock gauntlets that he uses quite a bit in this movie. Zing, zing, every time he punches, somebody gets knocked the F out. So, I'm not sure about that. But the scene where he escapes the police station, he inflates his suit and flies off in what's like a squirrel suit, a flying squirrel suit. But the way he lands, like, he would have broken every bone in his body. And that's, I think, where movies like this just fall off the rails. I get that it's a superhero movie. I get that these people are going to do things that the normal person can't do. I can barely bend over to tie my shoes, much less jump off a building. I get it. There is suspension of disbelief in a movie like this. But even Batman Returns has a scene where Michael Keaton is in the Batcave after a fight and he's beat up. And even Batman Begins had some of that. Like, you have to show Batman is human. That's what makes him so good, is that he's not from Krypton. He didn't get a magic ring. He didn't get bit by a spider. He's just a guy with a lot of money who said, I'm going to do something to help the people of my city. But he has no powers. So you have to show that he's fallible. That's what makes John McClane so endearing to us, is that he gets beat the hell up and still keeps going. He's the Energizer Bunny of action movies. But Batman just shrugs and sort of walks it off. Just shrugs and walks it off. Now, my biggest contention of the whole film is the basic premise. And the basic premise is given to us by the Riddler, who says that he enlisted Batman through the riddles to help him in his quest because the Riddler is not a hands-on guy. He's the brains and Batman's the muscle. Now, if that had been displayed in the movie, if the whole movie had been Batman is beating the piss out of people, and then the Riddler says, I want to thank you for that. You took care of that guy. Here's the next guy we're going after. But all through riddles, not straightforward. I would have said, man, that's great. But the movie opens with the Riddler himself committing a violent murder. He does it multiple times in the movie with a carpet trowel. He calls it a tucker. I laughed at that. I'm like, oh, they're talking to me. He beats people to death with it. So he couldn't just go in the club and beat Carmine Falcone to death. He could get into the mayor's office. He could get in places where no one is supposed to be able to be gotten to. Thank you, the Untouchables line. But he couldn't get Falcone. He needed Falcone to be walked out the front door so he could shoot him with a gun. The whole premise is silly. It's just silly, and it could have been so great. The movie looks good, it's shot well, the music's good, the Batmobile's cool, the Batsuit's really great. It makes his face kind of look like a skull. Catwoman is done very realistically, like it's something she would have put together. I mean, my favorite, obviously, is the Michelle Pfeiffer Catwoman. I mean, unbelievable. And Julie Newmar, Eartha Kitt, Lee Merriweather, not so much the Sharon Stone, Halle Berry one. But in this one, like, it's very realistic she would put that costume together. I totally get that. And the look of the movie's great. It's just when you finally sit back and go, well, what was the movie about? Well, the Riddler needed to manipulate Batman to beat up Falcone and bring him out the front door so he could get shot. And you're like, that took 3 hours? You've deliberately wasted my time, movie. Somebody do an edit and edit that movie down to like hour 40. I think you could take a full hour out of that movie and not miss anything. Unbelievable. But here's the thing. I watched it. I enjoyed it. I bought some of the toys. But I'll never watch it again. And that's indicative of a lot of these bloated superhero movies. There's just no need to watch them again once you've seen them. Which is strange because I grew up watching movies ad nauseum again and again and again. There are even some modern day movies. Like, I've seen Infinity War probably 12 times. I've seen Endgame probably 10 times. Those are 3-hour movies. But there's enough levity and creativity to keep you engaged and wanting to watch it again. The Batman had 0. Because it was just so moody. Like, imagine Blade Runner if Harrison Ford had bad ears. Like, just dark and dreary. And you know what? Oh my God. Gotham City should be so green because it rains every night in Gotham City. Like torrents of rain coming down. And I get that it's film noir. I know what they're going for. I know that the Riddler, when he gets arrested, is basically sitting in the Nighthawks painting because that's my favorite work of art of all time, Nighthawks. But you got to have something to hang your hat on. And the reveal of the gunshot was just not enough. It just wasn't enough, man. And they cut out a big scene with the Joker where he was going to go to the Joker for help. Like, I get ripping off Silence of the Lambs, but like ripping off Silence of the Lambs? Like, really, just take the whole scene out? Thomas Harris invented the FBI agent going to interview the serial killer. He got it from John Douglas, the man, the Mindhunter guy who invented it in real life. Like, we can find out what people are going to be killers if we interview killers and extrapolate. That Mindhunter show, David Fincher's show on Netflix, is astoundingly good. But these movies, these popcorn movies, and that's what Batman ultimately is, it's a popcorn movie. They steal these tropes from the best of the best, and they water down and squeeze them out until all meaning is taken out of them, and they're just scenes being played out on a big screen. And you're like, well, I've seen this before. And I know, as we move forward, that it's going to be harder and harder to give us something that we've never seen before. Jurassic Park. How many times can the dinosaurs escape? I don't know, 7? Right? Fast and Furious. How many times can they drive the car fast? We're up to 10, right? 10 2-hour movies about driving the car fast, or flying the car over buildings. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. If they're entertaining, God bless them. If they're entertaining, I'll watch them all day. The biggest issue with the Batman was it wasn't entertaining. But I do love the toys, and I'm hoping that Batmobile goes on sale so I can buy one, the one that lights up in the back with a little Batman that goes in it. Because I've always had a soft spot for collecting Batmobiles, even if I don't have that many. But the Batman, you watch it and you go, well, next summer The Flash is coming out and Michael Keaton returns as Batman. Oh. Because we're in regurgitation mode of pop culture, where all we do now is regurgitate things that have come before. There's nothing new. Very little new. Now it's just regurgitation. Spider-Man No Way Home cemented that. Just bring it all back. Just take what's gone before and bring it all back, and now you get to claim it as your own. I enjoyed Spider-Man No Way Home. Have you seen this movie? I mean, everybody's seen this movie, right? This Spider-Man movie where all the Spider-Man actors are together in the same movie. We've all seen it. It's a great concept, but I've watched it a couple of times because there were things that bothered me about it, and I didn't know why, so I had to search my brain, why do I like this? What am I missing? Why do I not really like this? Because the Spider-Man movie should be a home run in my brain. Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, Tom Holland, all yucking it up with all the classic villains. It's like the 60s Batman movie, again, where all the villains team up. I mean, that's great. But watching it a third time, I finally figured it out. It's that the movie takes place over a day and a half. Did you realize that? That the sequence on the freeway is when all the multiverse passageways are open. And then later that night, they summon the other Spider-Man to Ned's house. And then everybody goes to Hogan's apartment. And then the next night it's either the next night or the same night, they're at the Statue of Liberty. So it's a very truncated, shortened amount of time when all of this stuff happens. Here's the thing, nobody ever goes to bed, so it's one night. Nobody ever goes, I'm going to get some shut-eye and figure this out. And you're like, wait a minute, so all of this happens in the course of just a short amount of time, and in that short amount of time, all three Peter Parkers managed to come up with an antidote for the evil of their villain. They can turn the Lizard human, Sandman solid, Electro back to normal, Doc Ock's appendages, and they can erase the insanity of the Green Goblin all in one night. That's all very noble. But, even the guy who invented the paperclip probably took 2 or 3 days to figure it out. And we're talking about the nature of evil. The very nature of what makes these characters evil. And there were moments in the movie that I didn't appreciate, when they're laughing at Doc Ock's name. You're like, well, that's Spider-Man canon that you're laughing at. Are we so hip and cool now that we take the source material that these things were based on and we despise them? Is that where we're at in pop culture? I guess we'll find out next summer, because I think this whole trend of the multiverse, this and all the characters coming together, I think it ends next summer with the Batman Flash movie. Because after that, I don't know where you go. You can't really do Superman because, God bless, Christopher Reeve is no longer with us. And the last thing you want to see is a CGI Christopher Reeve meeting Brandon Routh and Dean Cain and Tom Welling and Henry Cavill, right? I don't know. But I think it all ends next summer. Because the modern day superhero movie, you can argue Superman, but there was a decade after that before Batman. Batman cemented the superhero movie as a box office thing. Because after Batman, we had Batman Returns, we had The Shadow, we had The Phantom, we had Batman Forever, we had Barbed Wire, we had all these comic book movies in a row. And now the Marvel movies, they owe a debt to Batman. Do they want to go back to the first Marvel theatrical movie and say, look, we all owe a debt to Howard the Duck, 1986, Howard the Duck? No, we're never going to say that. So it begins and ends this multi-thing with Michael Keaton saying, "You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts," because that's what he says in the footage that was screened at the cinema convention a couple weeks ago. But if the movie takes place over such a short amount of time, they do compact everything together. All this, well, you know what? The scene at the soup kitchen, is that in the daytime? Like the whole movie just moves at a clip like this. I'm snapping my fingers at a clip, right? But here's the question I have about the Spider-Man movies. Now, the characters in the movie. When they all get sent back to their own universes, what does that mean for those characters? Doc Ock died. The Green Goblin died. These characters died in their other universes. So when they show up alive, do they drop dead immediately upon entering the other universe? That would be reality for them, death. Or, and this is more important, do they face punishment for their crimes? Because most of these characters have murdered people. Some beat cop doing his job, somebody protecting a bank. All of these characters killed people for the most part, which once you commit murder, that's it. There's no redemption. You could ask for forgiveness, and the surviving victims may grant that, but it doesn't bring your loved one back from the dead. And the Green Goblin in this film, as he's being sent back to the other universe and saying he's grateful for everything they've done for him, let's not forget, 20 minutes prior, he killed Aunt May. His actions led to the death of Aunt May. With great power comes great responsibility, she says before she dies. So what happens when those characters enter their universes? I think there's a movie in that. Especially if it's Willem Dafoe. The guy is chewing up the scenery. One of the finest actors of our generation, Alfred Molina as well. The other characters weren't given much to do. They did well with what they had, but they weren't given much to do. And the whole after sequence with Venom, I simply didn't understand. I didn't understand at all. And apparently at the end of the Venom movie, there was a sequence where the Vulture rolls up on Venom and says, "We're going to work together to defeat Spider-Man," to which Venom says, "Who's Spider-Man?" You're like, he's not in that universe. Is there anybody at any of these studios who sits down and says, "We have a master plan for this, and here's what it is, and we'll take detours here and there depending on the director, but this is the overall goal"? The answer is they don't. Marvel Comics, DC Comics back in the day, they used to have master plans. These are the next 20 issues. I know people who write for comic books. You don't just wing it. You don't just wing it. You don't just throw in a curveball to see how it flies. Everything has to be vetted. You don't just turn in a finished comic book and expect them to take it. Even one that's been approved script-wise, they're going to have notes. But these movies are just sort of sent out into the atmosphere, and nobody seems to give a crap. I find that odd. I find that very, very odd. I had a chance to do a one-on-one with a very famous movie producer director. I can't say who it was until they decide they want to talk about it. But an A-lister. And I told this person, I write novels. And when I'm coming up with big plot movements, big things that are going to happen, I make sure everything fits. Because I never want the reader to go, well, this doesn't make any sense because in page 17 they said this, or book 2 they said that. And that's what makes me, I am assuming in my own mind, a competent writer. And yet, modern day storytelling, they just don't care. Things just happen, they're colorful, and if it makes sense, great, and if it doesn't, then it's you, the viewer. I just saw somebody on Facebook saying, if you didn't like it, that's your problem. I liked it, and it's great, and I'm not going to hear anybody complain about it. I'm like, well, we're allowed to have opinions. Differing opinions is what makes America great. And what do I always say on this show? If you liked that movie, whatever it is, and I didn't, then I'm jealous for you. Because I'd love to be you and love it. Not that I enjoyed Spider-Man. I've seen it more than once. I've loved Spider-Man since Nicholas Hammond swung into TVs in the 70s, even before that on Electric Company. Always loved Spider-Man. One of my first toys ever that I can remember getting, before Star Wars toys, was the Kim Toy Spider-Man web set. It was a supermarket rack toy where you got a little tube of like goo and these little tiny figures of Spider-Man and the Green Goblin, and you could, like it looked like one of those testers model glue tubes, and you could, and then move it across and then hang the pieces on the little string. I've tried to buy one. It's very expensive now because it's so old. But I love Spider-Man. And my kid loves Spider-Man, so we go see Spider-Man together. And I've seen it more than once. But I just, it's okay to have questions about movies. Isn't that what makes life great? Is, hey, I have a question, you have an opinion, let's talk. Not, I'm shutting it down. You're not allowed to have an opinion. Toxic fandom. Don't you hate that word? Toxic fandom. Oh, give me a break. I've been going to conventions since I was 12. 1984 I went to the first one. And since that time, there's nothing better than sitting down with fans of something and hashing it out. That's what we do. That's what makes liking this stuff so great. You like it, I didn't. I like it, you didn't. Let's debate. It's fun. Anywho. I also watched, real quick, I watched the Obi-Wan trailer. And I've had it with these stupid Disney shows. I've said I'm not going to watch any more of them. I mean, Book of Boba Fett was an embarrassment to the point where there were episodes where there was no Boba Fett. It's like, did you guys not have enough material? Then just make fewer episodes. No. The show's not doing well, so here's the Mandalorian. Here's the guy you really like. Here's the little baby Yoda. Oh, great. I mean, man, that's never happened before, has it? They've had TV shows where, like on Dukes of Hazzard, there was a contract dispute between John Schneider and Tom Wopat. So for one season, Coy and Vance took over for Bo and Luke. I remember tuning in going, what the hell is this? Who are these guys? They're cousins? But they're going to do the same show? Well, the original actors returned very quickly. But Book of Boba Fett, what happened there? Was Tamara Morrison just like, I'm not doing it? Or was it COVID? I mean, just say it was COVID. Isn't that the all-encompassing explanation for everything now is to go, it's COVID. Just COVID. I don't know. Why didn't it happen? COVID. Oh, okay. Wow, a catch-all for whatever it is. Why can't I use the bathroom at a gas station? COVID. Why? COVID. Well, what does that mean? But the Obi-Wan trailer, it's easy to cut a 2-minute, 3-minute trailer to make it look great. You just put the best stuff in there, leave enough mystery that let the audience try to figure out what the hell might be going on, and then wind up and let it go. But from the trailer, I think you can safely assume that Obi-Wan Kenobi will be in the first episode and the last episode, and the middle episodes will be about all those ridiculously dressed Imperial characters. And for some reason, Darth Vader. But they hint, like, Obi-Wan's gonna face Darth Vader in this? Are you joking? Why would you do that? It's cool, man. No, it's not cool. Because in 1977, when Alec Guinness steps out on the Death Star to face Darth Vader, and Darth Vader says, you shouldn't have come back, old man. You're like, these guys have a history, they're going to have a sword fight, and S is going down. But if they make them meet before then you take all the weight out of it. All of the weight of that duel in Star Wars is taken out if they meet before and you change canon. The same way that Rogue One, by introducing a character who put a vulnerable spot in the Death Star, takes away Luke Skywalker's blowing up of the Death Star. Luke didn't use faith to hit that exhaust port. It was put there by Mads Mikkelsen for somebody to hit. Could have been anybody. Anybody that could have got that torpedo into that hole would have blown the Death Star up. But in canon, it's only Luke could have done it. And he used the Force to do it. He turned his computer off. He put his faith in mysticism and his heart, and he let it go, and he blew the Death Star up. But no, let's undo that by talking about how it was put there by the guy who designed it as a backdoor way to blow it up. What? That's why I don't like Rogue One. That's it. Dumb. I watched Picard season 2. Well, let's go back to Obi-Wan really quick. Let's just hope that I'm wrong. Let's hope that it's amazing and that he faces off against not Darth Vader, but Darth Maul with robot legs right in the desert. And did you see the scene in the trailer where all the Imperial troops are marching down the street? And you're like, Tatooine was supposed to be this planet where nothing happened. And it's like every week there's another adventure that happens there. Boba Fett's there. The Mandalorian's there. The Imperials are there. It's this amazing... Why would Luke want to leave? Everything comes to him if he just stays on Tatooine long enough. And I've heard, spoiler alert, I've heard that Obi-Wan buys Luke the Skyhopper model that he's playing with in the garage. That was purchased by Obi-Wan to convince Luke subliminally to be a pilot. Hey, we'll see. I just don't know if I'm going to watch it. I just don't know if I have the patience. Because you get burned by these shows all the time because they don't have enough story to stretch it out to 8 or 10 episodes. Why they can't just make a 2-hour movie, I don't know. Except they can stretch it out over 8, 10 weeks and somehow get you to subscribe that long. I guess. So I finished watching Picard Season 2. I want my 10 hours back. What a piece of junk. Oh my God. Written by people without paper? Was it written on a rock and they just hurled it at each other from cars? Nothing made sense. Characters are introduced that never showed back up, or if they did, they were nominal. Picard falls in love with a Romulan who, no joke, last season had a husband. She just doesn't have a husband this year, unless I missed it, unless I'm the idiot. Hey, that could be the case. I've been known to be an idiot on numerous occasions. 7 of 9 and Rafi are now a couple, and the Han Solo dude sort of stayed in the past and saved the Earth. And the Borg are now good guys. The Borg are now benevolent army who sweep across the universe, and anybody who's about to die in like a spaceship accident, the Borg takes them in and saves them and makes them drones. What? Did anybody vet this script? Is Akiva Goldsman and Alex Kurtzman on drugs? The Borg now are made up of people who are going to die, and instead of being grateful that they've been saved, they're now drones in the army of the Borg. What are you talking about? And Will Wheaton showed up as Wesley Crusher as the Traveler to save Dodge, who's not really Dodge because it's Dodge from the past, because Data has all his relatives look exactly the same, and he can make robots, but the robot rebelled and ran off and deleted his files, so now he's going to make Khan? I'm not making this up. This was the show. This was this crap. Bewildering. Look, I get it. Patrick Stewart is an old guy. He should be poolside with a banana daiquiri, but instead he's on set as Jean-Luc Picard, so every scene is Picard is sitting and talking. Picard is laying down and talking. Picard is comatose and people talk around him. Picard is a POV camera moving through an environment. What a joke. And how many people died during those sequences? Even though they said they shouldn't do anything to mess up the past, they just started killing people left and right. Even though the person doing the killing was 7 of 9, a person who escaped the Borg implants to become generally, mostly human again, and she's killing people. She has no compassion for these people? I'm watching the TV in shock, like, what happened to Star Trek? Star Trek used to be the opposite of Star Wars. Star Wars was about spaceships blowing up and planets blowing up and sword fights that go on 3 days. And Star Trek was 2 people sitting across a table going, we're going to hash this out with our words. And sometime later we might fire a photon torpedo. But now it's just, these are just mindless, lame action shows. And they come up with like the thinnest of plot threads to hang their action on. That's, I think, the worst part. There was even a sequence ripped from E.T. where this kid encounters the Romulans in the forest, and I'm like, this looks just like E.T. Whoever directed this has a serious Spielberg fetish, which, hey, again, if you're going to steal, you might as well steal from the best. I also watched Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. What a complete train wreck of a movie. I don't think it was Sam Raimi's fault. I think he was handed most of a movie and told to fix it. So they just dazzle you with crappy special effects. But what was the whole point of introducing all these characters if you're just going to kill them? Hey, you know what? John Krasinski is Mr. Fantastic, and he's dead. Patrick Stewart from Picard is Professor X again, but now he's in the cool yellow wheelchair from the cartoon, and he's dead. Black Bolt is dead. Peggy Carter as the Captain America is dead. The new Captain Marvel is dead. These inexplicable. Marvel usually, even if they stumble, it's an elegant stumble. This one's a mess. This is a mess of a movie. I can't imagine anybody wanting to watch. There's no repeatability to this movie. It was just a complete, like, you felt like the TV grew arms and was smacking you with a hammer. Here's the movie, bang. Here's the movie, bang. And you're like, oh, please turn it off. Please turn it off. Oh my God. Hey, this was fun. I didn't have enough material for like a full hour on one thing, so I did a bunch of little things. I have some other episodes coming up. It is so great to sit and talk with you. I hope you are enjoying life. I hope you're doing what you got to do, because that's all you can do right now is do what you got to do. I am Jeff Tucker, and this is 91 Reasons.
Thanks for listening to 91 Reasons. Please subscribe and leave a review on iTunes. Find us on Facebook. Is anyone even still listening?